behavior. He was out photographing tobacco plants in the early hours before dawn. Most were infested with caterpillars. As he worked, he began to notice something unusual. Instead of blooming at night, some of the flowers were opening at dawn. And the daytime flowers didn't look or smell the way they should.
They differed completely from the night opening flowers in terms of nectar volume, sugar concentration, and what we found out later, even they didn't emit floral volatiles as well. When we walked around and we saw that almost any plant had caterpillars on them, it was really a huge outbreak, and we felt, what's going on here? It's kind of, it was weird, right?
And the weirdness continued. Not only had the bloom's nectar and perfume changed, the shape of the flower itself had completely transformed. Essentially, by changing its flowers and bloom time, the plant had stopped talking to its nocturnal pollinator, the hawk moth, and struck up a conversation with a daytime pollinator, the hummingbird.
The eggs that hummingbirds lay don't hatch into caterpillars. They hatch into little baby hummingbirds, which don't eat plants. So by switching its pollinator, it avoids a whole group of herbivores that it would normally get.
No one knows for sure why the plant doesn't permanently switch pollinators, but the switch can happen in less than 8 days.
The ability to change the shape and smell and the quality of nectar and flowers almost immediately is incredible. It's incredibly complex, and we have no idea how common this is across species. It's a very novel and new finding.
And the surprises don't end there. When one plant is attacked and starts to signal, other plants can eavesdrop on its chemical messages and may respond by ramping up their own defenses. And Baldwin has also discovered that when you block the plant's ability to hear itself talk, it seems to go a little crazy.
If you basically plug the plant's ears so it can't hear that volatile that's producing, it begins to scream louder. For one thing, they don't know when they're pollinated. They will produce floral scents continuously. They'll yell and yell and yell for pollinators, even though they were pollinated a long time ago. One could interpret that as evidence of self-awareness. If they're not able to perceive themselves, everything goes wrong.
So if plants are basing their behavior on signals they receive from their environment, is it possible that they're also interacting with each other? In other words, could plants have a secret social life? For a pride of lions, social life isn't all about childcare and cooperative hunting. Adult lions can be fierce competitors, fighting over everything from mates and meals to territory. So what about plants? Did they fight over things like food and terrain? Well, if you speed things up, you can actually see how plants compete, pushing and shoving as they struggle to capture sunlight. But here in Montana, there's a new plant in town. A beautiful, nasty weed that doesn't just compete with its neighbors. Underground, it's waging territorial war. It's a foreign invader from Eastern Europe called spotted knapweed, and it's killing off the native grasses the local cattle love to eat. Bad news for rancher Dave Mannix. Dave's family has been raising cattle on this land for more than 100 years. And like all ranchers, he's fought the weather and taken on predators to keep his herd alive. Never in his wildest dreams did he imagine that a single plant could take him down.
Succession with our children is a big thing, and the economic viability of our industry is a big thing, and then right there with that is knapweed. It scares us worse than predators scare us, that's for sure. And if we lose that battle to knapweed, then we've lost the base for our whole enterprise. Sometimes there's a dominant species out there. That's a plant that has an unfair advantage for a time, and right now is its time. We focus a lot of our attention and monetary resources trying to take care of our range battling knapweed.
That battle has involved everything from chemical sprays to biological weapons, like these sheep. A hired hand moves this herd across hundreds of acres of ranch land because sheep are happy to mow down knapweed, unlike cattle and other herd animals.
Wildlife like elk, deer consume it, but it doesn't seem to be preferred. The reality is it's taken over a lot of territory, and it's both a destructive plant, and it's also an absolutely fascinating organism.
Fascinating because even the insects that eat knapweed don't seem to slow it down. Imported from the plant's home range in Europe, this weevil's offspring burrow into the knapweed's taproot, where they feed until fully grown. But they seem to have very little impact on the health of the plant.
There's 2 of these insects in here blasting away at the root, and look at the plant. It's healthy as hell.
But a lack of natural enemies can't fully explain the phenomenal success of this land-hungry weed. As J.C. Cahill is about to discover, spotted knapweed has invaded some 4.5 million acres of Montana rangeland. And no one knows more about its aggressive behavior than plant ecologist Ray Calloway.
So JC, this is a pretty good example of a really dense knapweed monoculture. It's not a very big patch. But you notice it follows a road. Knapweed loves disturbance. Usually when you get something this dense, disturbance is a part of it. But there's nothing native in here. So this is maybe a little more typical of a spotted knapweed invasion. There's a lot of knapweed, maybe it's more of it than anything else, but there's still a few natives left in here. I mean, this kind of scene covers a lot of Montana.
It's been neat and sort of sad to see this at the same time. This isn't just a plant that academics use to answer neat academic questions. This is a plant that is causing people hardship on the land.
But I would say, again, this is a lot more typical.
So there's a huge drop in biodiversity that follows this invasion, and so these plants are just knocking off the natives.
Yeah.
So if knapweed is the plant equivalent of the Terminator, how does it wage war? Well, there may be a lot of factors giving this invader a leg up. But the root of the problem may quite literally be in the roots. To uptake essential soil nutrients, knapweed roots deploy a variety of chemicals. And when they're released, the chemicals have a nasty added benefit. They seem to kill off a lot of native grasses, allowing knapweed to capture and hold huge swaths of territory. A behavior that's very animal-like.
Interestingly enough, this could be one neat behavioral sort of analogy with plants, holding a territory through the release of chemicals that harm your neighbors, and then making the resources that are there available to you. So JC, this experiment...
And experiments like this one show just how lethal those chemicals can be.
Competitive ability of this spotted knapweed.